Welcome to News Inside. I'm An Jang-hyun. Let's meet our panelists. Professor Shin Sang-hyuk from Kyung University Graduate School of International Studies is back. And Professor Kim Jae-chun from Sagang University Graduate School of International Studies joins us.
It's good to be here.
A spate of terror attacks has gripped people around the world, hitting targets not only in the Middle East but also in Asia. The random acts of violence have stirred up a growing sense of unease. Is the Islamic State behind this all? Here's a rundown of some of the major attacks.
On July 1st, a restaurant in the capital of Bangladesh, Dhaka, was attacked by terrorists who took customers hostage and ended up killing 2 Bangladeshis and 18 foreign nationals. Local authorities speculate a banned homegrown Islamist movement, Jamiatul Mujahideen in Bangladesh, or JMB, was behind the attack. 2 days later, a suicide truck bomb tore through a busy district in Baghdad, followed by another bomb explosion in a different area. Sunni-dominant ISIS claimed responsibility for the attacks against the Shiite neighborhoods. As Ramadan drew to a close, more terror attacks erupted. In Saudi Arabia, 3 cities were hit by a string of suicide bombers, all on the same day, leaving nearly a dozen dead. According to a recent map put out by ISIS on its areas of control, it reportedly has head offices or branches in 12 countries and covert units in 7 states. If these claims are true, it means the militant group has managed to expand its influence from the Middle East and North Africa to Europe and Asia. Just this year, the world has seen a series of attacks initiated by terror groups such as ISIS, leaving over 1,000 people either dead or injured. The violence of terror continues to threaten the balance of global security.
Now, the possibility of falling victim to attacks like these is becoming more and more real, especially when we see the cases in Turkey and Bangladesh. What were your thoughts when you first heard about these attacks?
Well, Turkey is located in between Asia and Europe. In case of Bangladesh, Bangladesh must be an Asian state. So we can say that the terror attack has expanded. In the reason, Asia even is started to be included as one of the target reason for the terrorists.
Professor Kim, what were your thoughts?
I think it's also a sign that ISIS is losing its ground in the Middle East, particularly after the Iraqi government recaptured Fallujah. A report says that the ISIS has lost about 50% of their territorial foothold in the Middle East. So now they have become more brutal, all the more desperate. I think that is the reason why they are looking toward Asia, where they can find these easier soft targets.
No, Turkey happens to be quite a popular tourist destination among Koreans. And in Bangladesh, we actually saw a number of victims from neighboring Japan. Why do you think these specific locations were targeted, airport in Turkey and restaurant in Bangladesh?
Well, there are 2 analyses. First one is because of domestic political problems. As you know very well, Bangladesh has achieved a very fast economic growth over the last several years. They faced some difficulties caused by the economic growth, that is the distribution of economic benefits. So the economic benefits achieved by the economic growth could not be successfully distributed well balanced to everyone in the country. Subsequently, the person who cannot to take advantages of the economic benefits from the economic growth, they could complain about the reality facing them. And then the regime, lasted for a long time. So there must be some the issues which can be attacked by the people, particularly well-educated young people. And so maybe, according to the analysis made by the local the experts, they said that these groups can express their complaints about the government and the reality. They could attack foreigners over there. And second analysis that in case of Islamic countries, the Islamic terrorists, they selected some specific group as a target of their terror attack. Certainly, they selected the foreigners as a target of terror attack. And in this scenario, it includes that the Islamic terrorists must be involved in this terror attack.
Well, in this case, the government of Bangladesh has said it was most likely done by homegrown terrorists with very little connection to the IS, right?
Yes. So I think in this case, the government definitely try to defend or avoid any of the reality facing them as much as they could. That means that, as I explained before, certainly the Bangladesh has domestic problems, particularly politics. So maybe it can be quite burdensome on the government if this issue is pointed out as one of the major reasons of the terrorist attack. So I think the government just tried to minimize implications of this terror attack on the domestic politics. At the same time, definitely, considering the domestic economy, it can be certainly one of the huge negative factors. So certainly the government tried to avoid taking the very heavy burdensome caused by the terror attack this time.
Well, IS did claim responsibility for many of these attacks. We talked to a couple of experts about some of the notable trends seen in the recent terror strikes.
IS라는 이 전체 조직이 굉장히 우리가 테러 조직의 일반적인 이론으로 봤을 때 특이한 것이, 예를 들어서 알카에다 같은 경우에는 위에서 아래로 자신들이 일관되게 명령 체계를 내리는데, IS 같은 경우는 굉장히 다르게 아래에서 위로 자신들이 알아서 내가 테러를 했다, 그러니 그것을 승인을 해라. 그러니까 테러가 났는데 이게 IS랑 얼마나 긴밀히 연계가 돼 있느냐라는 질문에는 정말 케이스마다 달리 봐야 되는 것이고, 터키나 방글라데시 같은 경우는 약간 의문점은 남는 것이고,
바그다드 이런 데는 이제 공식적으로 IS가 자기들의 소행이라고 이제 발표를 했고, 또 현지 경찰에서 수사 결과를 발표하면서도 IS의 소행이라 뭐 이렇게 이제 했습니다.
2016년 6월 29일이 IS가 자신들의 이슬람 칼리프 제국을 선포한 지 2주년이 되는 날이거든요. 그런데 IS 같은 경우가 지금 현재 전투에서 굉장히 수세에 몰리고 있어요. 그렇기 때문에 자신들의 이 전략을 비대칭 전략, 비대칭 전술인 이 테러에 집중을 하고 있고,
라마단 기간이 끝났죠. 지난주까지 해서 라마단 기간 중에 테러를 자행하면은 이건 일종의 순교다, 지하드다, 뭐 이렇게 이제 이야기를 하고 있기 때문에 이때 이제 집중적으로 이제 테러가 발생할 수가 있겠고요.
중동뿐만 아니라 서남아시아의 무슬림 국가들의 기존에 존재했었던 이런 급진 단체들이 자신들이 기존에 주목을 별로 받지 못하다가 테러를 벌이고 나서, 그런데 우리가 IS의 방글라데시 지부다, 인도네시아 지부다라고 주장을 하고 나오고 있거든요.
테러의 세계화, 그리고 테러리스트의 세계화를 이렇게 표명을 하면서 최근 들어 지금 아시아권까지도 IS의 테러 벨트가 이렇게 확대되고 있다.
중동에 진출해 있는 한국 기업이 굉장히 많기 때문에 사실 중동에 진출해 있는 한국인들이 가장 큰 걱정이고요. 기존의 체제에 굉장히 불만이 많고, 사실 정확한 이슬람이나 이런 쿠란에 대한 지식이 없는 상황에서 이 두 가지 요소가 결합을 한다면 한국 내에서도 자생적 테러리스트에 대한 불안은 언제든지 커질 수 있을 것 같습니다.
So it's probably fair to say that no country is free from the threat of terrorism anymore. How about Korea? What kind of countermeasures do we have in place?
Well, the first point which I want to underline is that the counter-terrorism law was passed in the parliament last March. Of course, it was not easy because the stance of the ruling party and opposition party were quite different. But anyway, they made it to pass this the anti-terrorism law. So based on this anti-terrorism law, the government has prepared the measures how deal with the possible terror attack in Korea. And then one thing which I want to underline from this law is that the government can respond very fastly if the situation happened. But I think the law is not perfect. Well, in fact, still many things should be reconsidered and prepared to improve the efficiency in the measures to deal with the terror attack in Korea. And particularly, I think that we can get the very valuable lessons from the American experiences. Well, 9/11 they happened, occurred in the United States. Well, after the 9/11 attack, the USA government has taken quite reasonable measures. But after the measures taken by the USA government, we can see many are the cases showing the inappropriate measures taken by the USA government in dealing with the the terrorist attack. So the lesson which you can get from the American experiences is we have to keep on considering to develop new measures and improve the efficiency, and particularly, according to the evaluation made by the experts about the anti-terrorism law, still many things should be added up. For example, when the situation happened, the collaboration between the involving ministries or government organizations should be strengthened further.
There has been concern, though, that the anti-terrorism law that was passed back in March is not enough to perhaps prevent random acts of violence by the so-called lone wolves or homegrown terrorists, which was the case in the Orlando shooting.
Yes, exactly. That's the point which I want to pinpoint. As I said before, the USA government has taken some follow-up actions after 9/11 attack, but the Orlando case, certainly they failed to deal with this case very efficiently. So I think that we can get some lessons from the American experiences. We cannot be exception. Definitely, I think we have to study the other countries' experiences. Based on that, we have to keep on making every effort to develop the more efficient measures to deal with the terrorist attack.
Well, terrorism has certainly emerged as an issue of contention in the U.S. presidential race as well. How do you see this affecting U.S. policy and international relations in general?
I think counterterrorism has been always an important issue in American politics, particularly after 9/11 terror incident. So this year's presidential election is not an exception. Different candidates have different opinions about how the U.S. should cope with terrorism. Trump, Republican candidate, is saying that the U.S. should close down the border, should minimize the inflow of Muslim immigrants. Hillary Clinton to the country has been saying that the U.S. will have to strengthen international cooperation and international networks. So there is a clear difference between the two candidates. What is the impact of international terrorism on international relations? You see, more and more countries, major countries in the world, they are becoming more inward-looking, becoming more isolationist in recent years. I think that trend has a lot to do with the increase of terrorism. They are trying to close down the border to prevent terrorism, but it is not the right measure. So I think it is a growing concern in international relations because the countries are trying to close down their border because of terrorism, but it's not the right measure to deal with international terrorism, in my opinion.
Yes, and it's also fueling xenophobia about immigrants and foreign workers and refugees already in their countries. We're seeing this in many parts of the world, right?
Sure, international terrorism, these terror incidents have fueled this, basically xenophobia. As I said, because of this xenophobia, these countries are trying to close down their borders. They are trying to detach from this flow from trend toward globalization. I think the surge of Trump in the United States and Brexit has a lot to do with this increasingly isolationist mood in major countries. But as I said, this is very unfortunate. This is not the right manner to deal with international terrorism. You have to be more open-minded and you have to be more welcoming to foreign people and foreign culture. I think that is how you fundamentally deal with the root causes of international terrorism.
What about its effect on the global economy? There are already concerns in Bangladesh that the recent attack could dent economic growth.
Well, I think it's better for us to discuss about the Bangladesh economy first. As I explained already very briefly, over the last 6 years, the Bangladesh economy has achieved the 6% economic growth. This is a very high one in comparing with the economic growth rate of other countries, including major economies. In fact, the textile industry is certainly one of the major key industries in Bangladesh. According to the report released by the Bangladesh government about the 160 million people, they have the 160 million populations, which is the 8th largest one in the world. And among the oldest 160 millions, about 4 million, they are engaged in the textile industry. So certainly this is one of the key strategic industries in Bangladesh. But the one such a kind of terror attack occurred in Bangladesh, definitely we can guess there must be some huge negative impact on the economic growth. Well, when you look at the situation happening in Bangladesh about 1 year ago, well, in fact, there was the nationwide strike, supported by the Bangladesh opposition party. At the time, the foreign investors and foreign the buyers, which gave the order to the local textile companies, they refrained themselves from visiting to Bangladesh, and they also reduced the order volume. So subsequently, the Bangladesh economy was hit negatively by the nationwide strike. So we can guess that what kind of impact the Bangladesh economy will get from this terror attack. According to the theory of economics, when the foreign investors consider to choose the destination of their investment, the local stability, political and economic stability has been the number one. We can find this outcome in many previous researches. So definitely, if the terror attack occurred in Bangladesh, definitely the foreign investors could understand this one as one of the most serious obstacles for them to make the decision where they go to. So definitely it must be a very negative impact for the local, Bangladesh economy. And then how about the global economy? We are in the middle of the financial crisis and economic crisis. And then when you look at the so-called value chains between advanced economies and the less advanced economies, definitely, well, the advanced economies, they move their production facilities from their countries to the developing countries.
Right.
Bangladesh is one of them, definitely. So, if they cannot keep on increasing, making investment in developing country like the Bangladesh, definitely, and because of the political instability caused by the terror attack, that means that the advanced economies can get the negative impact directly or indirectly. Because as I explained before, the developing economies will be shrinked because of the terror attack. So those kind of situations subsequently will affect the advanced economies. Then, in the middle of the global economies, definitely the degree of impact which the advanced economies will get from the situation happening in developing countries can be felt heavily than the usual time. So as a whole, certainly the terror attack can directly affect the developing countries' economy directly, and then indirectly it can give very badly on the advanced economy. So subsequently, as a whole, global economy will be influenced. Will get very negative impact because of terror attack.
So what kind of action can be taken on the global level to solve this problem?
Well, definitely the global community, many countries has felt the needs of the collaboration to fight against the terrorism. So there has been the international conference, which was suggested by the President Obama. And then throughout the activities arranged at this conference, they just try to prevent terrorist groups from the recruiting more fighters and then to getting more funds for the terrorist attacks. And then also they want to prevent the spread of the ideologies. Because they are based on Islamic fundamentals. Actually, their ideology is not the pure Islamic, the spirits or theology.
These are extremists.
Yes, definitely. So by preventing spreading those kind of things, around the world. Definitely, they wanted to reduce the power or influences of the terrorist the group in the regional countries, but also in the global context. So in Korea, particularly, has very actively collaborate with the international community to prevent them from having more fighters. So the Korean government has very actively participated in this kind of programs, but we are standing at the initial stage, so we have to make further efforts, I think.
Well, let's now turn our attention to North Korea. Here are some recent developments from across the border.
North Korea recently held the fourth session of its 13th Supreme People's Assembly, in which Kim Jong-un was given the title of chairman for a new government body called the State Affairs Commission. This is after the leader was promoted to chairman of the Workers' Party back in May during the 7th Party Congress. The new State Affairs Commission replaces the National Defense Commission and is the policy-making body that moves in accordance with the party. With this, Kim Jong-un has in effect consolidated his power within the party, government, and military. The North also designated July 3rd as a new strategic forces holiday that came after the parliamentary gathering. It also threatened the U.S., claiming it would turn America's military bases into a sea of fire if it provoked the North.
So there was a reshuffle of some key offices at the Supreme People's Assembly in North Korea. What can we infer from the changes that happened in the North Korean leadership?
I think with the reshuffling of some of the key offices, Kim Jong-un is trying to consolidate his one-man rule over the country. Some of the most important changes that they made was to create this new state apparatus, tentatively known as Commission on State Affairs. I think this new apparatus, this new organization, Commission on State Affairs, is trying to replace the role of National Defense Commission. And National Defense Commission was very instrumental to Kim Jong-il's Sungun policy, which is a military-first policy. So I think Kim Jong-un is trying to make a big statement here. Is proclaiming that now is his time. He's trying to shift his focus from Sungun policy to Sundang policy, which means that the party first policy. So he's emphasizing the role of the Labor Party. So yeah, I mean all these reshuffles, the meaning that we can take away from this is that Kim Jong-un is making a big statement. Now is the time. Now he's clearly separating himself from his father.
They created this commission on state affairs, and at the Workers' Party as well, they created a new post for him, chairman. His father used to be secretary general. So from what Kim Jong-un is doing, it looks like he's trying to escape the shadows of his father?
Yes, as I said, I mean, he respects and he appears on these public occasions and say that he has this great respect toward his father. But clearly, he's trying to distance from his father's Sungun policy. Now he's emphasizing the role of the party. So yeah, I mean, this is new era. Now is his time, and he'll maintain this firm grip over the society for many more years to come. Yeah, there's a big message that he's trying to impart.
Yes, this rubber stamp parliament meeting also placed a great deal of emphasis on North Korea's 5-year economic development plan, but I think it's already well known that the North Korean economy has become heavily reliant on the so-called 장마당 or marketplace rather than the state's planned economy, right?
Yes, it's true. I mean, the 장마당 economy or the marketplace economy started in 1970. Over the last several decades, there has been big changes. In 2010, we can say that the private market, I mean the marketplace market in North Korea has formed as a private market. To form a market, there must be some demand and supply. Demand and supply should be the two main activities in a market. Well, those kind of the sequential formations in the marketplace in economy in North Korea was completed in 2010. But the concerns I have and right now is that, as we know very well, the United Nations has implemented, the economic sanctions against North Korea. Then this can be one of the factors creating some changes in North Korean marketplace economy. What I mean is that, as I said before, over the last several decades, the marketplace economy in North Korea could be developed under the invisible support of the North Korean regime.
Well, they just turned a blind eye,
yes.
right? Mm-hmm.
But in the middle of the economic sanctions, definitely the North Korean economy is expected to be in a bad shape. Then definitely the marketplace economy could be, foundations of the marketplace economy can be shaken or weakened. So I think this can be one of the imminent threats to the marketplace economy in North Korea.
Well, in the meantime, North Korea has ramped up its rhetoric, especially against the U.S. Do you think it has the U.S. presidential race in mind?
Not particularly U.S. presidential election in mind, but they certainly do have the United States in mind when they are ratcheting up the tensions and when they are scaling up provocations. The objective is to draw the attention from the United States. I think their objective is to cut some sort of peace deal with the United States while retaining their nuclear weapons state status. I think that's their objective, and I think now is all the more important for the North Koreans to ratchet up the tension to prove that the sanction is not working. You'll have to negotiate with us. So my guess is that for a very long while, the North Koreans will continuously ratchet up tensions to draw the attention from the United States.
I'm sure North Korea is closely following how the U.S. presidential race is unfolding. Who do you think North Korea would prefer to see in the White House? Donald Trump?
I think
Hillary
North Koreans will prefer Trump to Clinton. If Trump becomes president, I think American presence in Asia will be diminished to a certain extent, to a great extent, to be honest with you. The U.S. alliance partnership with Korea will be weakened to a great extent. So I think that's something North Koreans would want. Trump's rhetoric has been very strong against Kim Jong-un. He called Kim Jong-un crazy, but at a certain point he said that he'd like to have this hamburger lunch with Kim Jong-un. So I think at this moment, North Korea prefers Trump to Clinton. Clinton, if she becomes the president, she will continue and strengthen Obama's policy toward North Korea. So it is expected that President Clinton would take sterner measures against North Korea, something North Korea doesn't want.
It doesn't seem like Donald Trump knows very much about North Korea.
Can I add one thing
Sure.
more? In fact, Mr. Trump has emphasized that the USA should have the direct conversation with the North Korea. Actually, this is some wish North Korean government has insisted. I think how about the Clinton? Madame Clinton, she emphasized that North Korean nuclear issue should be solved based on the Iranian model. So I think definitely there must be some differences in the stance of the two candidates. So definitely, as Professor Kim pointed out, that the North Koreans want to see the election of Mr. Trump as the President of the United States.
Now, last month, the U.S. published its list of 2015 state sponsors of terrorism. North Korea has managed to stay off that list since 2008, but I understand there are certain moves within the U.S. House to change that. Certain lawmakers are trying to change that and have North Korea relisted.
I think it was the decision made by the State Department. The State Department made the decision not to include North Korea on the list of state sponsors terrorism, because I think the State Department is leaning more toward negotiation with North Korea. Not that I'm saying that they will be holding negotiations with North Koreans instantly, but they don't want to rule out the possibility of talks with North Koreans in the future. But the Congress is putting more pressure on North Koreans. So my take is that I think that the U.S. Congress, the U.S. House, is more in tune with the overall national sentiments in the United States with regard to North Korean nuclear weapons problem.
Meanwhile, in domestic politics, a controversy surrounding nepotism in hiring parliamentary aides has led to a broader discussion on the privileges given to National Assembly members. Going against expectations, lawmakers have been pushing to strip back some of the key perks they enjoy. We'll look at what this all means. So this is the first time we're seeing a movement like this on this scale. Do you think this is a genuine push for reform, or is it more political maneuvering?
Well, personally, I think it's more political maneuvering because, whenever newer National Assembly launched, the politicians have empathized the reform of in the parliament. In this context, I think we have to understand. I do understand the proposal made by the both political parties. When you look at the details, they want to give up the privilege from arrest and immunity for speech in parliament. But those things are guaranteed, secured in the constitutions. Then if they said that they will give up these things, that means they will
change the constitution.
It's a big issue, isn't it? But I never heard about any comments or any plan to change the constitution. This is the reason why I cannot feel any genuine push for reform from the politicians.
Well, there is that talk of changing the constitution to change the presidential system. Yes, we'll talk more about those immunities in just a bit. But Professor Kim, what are your thoughts? Do you think this is more of a show too?
Well, there was a couple of scandals. These lawmakers hired their relatives as their assistants. So I think they had to do something. I agree with Professor Shin on the point that there was a political urgency on the part of several political parties to do something under this pressure. So I would rather say it was more of a political maneuvering, and cutting off these privileges means amending Constitution, which is a lot easier said than done. So we'll have to wait and see, actually. Yeah.
Well, what does the public think about the privileges given to the country's legislative members, and what exactly are these perks? Let's take a look.
Calls are getting louder for Korea to reduce the number of special privileges offered to the country's lawmakers. As a result, the ruling and opposition parties have agreed to create a consultative body under the preview of the National Assembly Speaker.
앞으로 어떻게 잘 국민을 섬길까 그 대책을 강구할 거예요.
In a survey conducted on 500 adults nationwide back in 2013, 99% of the respondents said they believe lawmakers have one too many special privileges. 95% said they believe some of those benefits need to be scaled back. Once elected as lawmakers, members receive immunity for speech in Parliament and the privilege from arrest. Their wages reach some $120,000, and a total of roughly 200 special benefits are given to these National Assembly representatives.
So we just saw there are some 200 privileges given to Korean lawmakers. How does this compare to other advanced democracies?
Congress people in many countries in the world, they do have certain set of privileges. The Congress people in the United States, they have certain privileges. So do the Congress people in Japan. It's just a matter of degree. Maybe Sweden is only exception here. Personally, I wouldn't mind these lawmakers retaining privileges as long as they use these privileges in a more responsible and ethical manner, as long as they deliver. But the problem is they don't deliver. So I think the point of debate should be how we can make these lawmakers use these privileges in more responsible manner. How we can make these lawmakers deliver the outcomes which they fail to do so. Yeah. So I think that should be the point of the debate.
Well, going back to the two privileges that are a source of heated debate right now, immunity from arrest and immunity for speech and debate in Parliament, what's such a big deal about them?
Well, as we discussed so far, about 200 privileges have given to lawmakers. among these 200 privileges, why we have to focus on two privileges? Well, simply because the lawmakers misused these two privileges. Let me give you more details. In case of the privilege from arrest, well, some lawmakers who were involved in the corruption scandals, they used this one. You know, in fact, this privilege has given to the lawmakers in many countries as well. But we cannot find the many cases of misuse of this privileges in other countries. But when you look at the history, brief history of the Korean Parliament, we can find many cases, examples, cases of misusing this privilege. So definitely, because of this privilege has been focused by many people whenever we discuss about privileges given to lawmakers. How about immunity for speech in Parliament? We can see also many cases of misuse of this privilege. Because of the privilege, immunity for speech in Parliament, they just try to avoid taking responsibility. This is also has been criticized many people many times over the last several years.
These privileges are specified in the Constitution for a reason. It is so that these lawmakers can do their job without having to fear arrest or persecution from the past governments, especially the dictatorships that we've had. So do you think these practices or these privileges are outdated now that we have an established democracy?
Not really. Actually, the main function of the parliament, the lawmakers, is to monitor the government, and then whenever the government goes to the wrong direction, their role is that prevent the government from going to that direction. That means that certainly their role is very important. But certainly to carry out the role, they should have this kind of privileges if they use this privilege properly. But I think, as I said before, when someone misuses these privileges, that is quite serious. When we are considering negative impact of influence of these misuse cases on these privileges themselves.
So, as we said, we've heard this debate before. We'll have to wait and see whether anything comes out of it. In the meantime, how do you see this affecting domestic politics?
I think it's going to take a long while for these lawmakers to cut down these privileges, because as we discussed earlier, it has to. The amending constitution has to come first before in order for them to drop these privileges. So the amending constitution is politically very sensitive issue. As you mentioned before, amending constitution means significant changes in power structure in Korean politics. Particularly, it is very, very politically sensitive when the presidential election is scheduled next year. You talk about amending constitution at this point for whatever reasons. It's going to be like opening like a can of worms. It's like it's going to create a big stir on Korean political landscape. So I don't think this is going to be. This movement, in recent movement, will produce any substantial outcomes in the near future. So
is it going to slowly fade away?
As we discussed, there is a reason, as you mentioned, but there is a reason why these lawmakers are given this set of privileges to guarantee uninterrupted legislative, activities. If you, take this power or prerogatives or perks or whatever you call them away from these lawmakers, this is going to tip the balance between the legislative branch and executive branch in favor of the executive branch. You don't want to see that happen in Korean politics. So as long as these lawmakers exercise these privileges in responsible manner, as I said before, I really don't mind that these lawmakers retaining these perks or prerogatives.
Right. Well, we have to wrap up our discussion. Your final thoughts of the week.
Well, I wish personally the politicians they make the genuine reform in the parliament, because the people's maturity or people's thought and the concerns have been quite matured in some sense. So this is time for us to expect some changes from the lawmakers. When we can see the genuine reform from them, definitely we can take a further step in our politics, which is very important for the future of Korean economy and Korean politics.
Professor Kim?
Foreign policy begins at home. We have a host of grave foreign policy challenges. In order for us to deal with these foreign policy challenges in a more efficient manner, we'll have to put the house in order first.
Hope the lawmakers out there are listening. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us today. That is all for this edition of News Inside. Thanks for watching. We'll be back with more next week.